Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll give it a few minutes to have everyone kind of filter in, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Where do I see? Okay, that's just me. Where will I see the people who populate it? Go over to another screen?
Well, so this is actually a webinar. So it's more folks just, we won't see anybody on camera.
Okay.
We get to speak to each other and into this beautiful void.
Alrighty.
Just give it a few more minutes. I know these things don't quite always start on time. So.
Does it like show people showing up or?
Yes. I think it's on
So
the behind the scenes. Behind the scenes kind of logistics on my the joys of technology.
I had a thing that had participants, but then the that little icon disappeared here.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? So hi, everyone. My name is Julie. I work with in William Morrow, which is Tim's publisher, and we couldn't be any more excited to be publishing the 25th installment of the Sir J. Storm series, Mermaid Confidential. Goes on sale at midnight tonight. It's really exciting. But I just wanted to start by thanking our bookstore partners, Tattered Cover, Books and Books, Murder by the Book, Quail Ridge Books, and Fountain Bookstore. We always really love and appreciate when you guys are able to buy locally and support your local indie. So thank you so much for doing that. And then I also wanted to just give a quick PSA for quick etiquette. We know that we try to keep it very respectful, and there's no place for any kind of hate speech or anything like that. If things do get to a point, which I'm not anticipating they would, but you will be removed from the webinar. So let's just keep it very positive and exciting. I know Serge would probably come for you as well if you were not nice tonight. So you have been forewarned. And so now for introducing our guest of honor tonight, Mr. Tim Dorsey, who doesn't need much of an introduction, but I'll go ahead and read his bio, which is Tim Dorsey was a reporter and editor for the Tampa Tribune from 1987 to 1999, and is the author of 24 other novels. I'm not going to list them all because I'm pretty sure you all have them on your bookshelf. But the latest is Tropic of Stupid. And like I said, tomorrow Mermaid Confidential goes on sale, and he lives in Florida. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Hello. Good evening.
Greetings from Brooklyn.
This is actually my first event in 2 years. Attached to a bookstore. They have done some Zoom stuff, but yeah, I used to, for people who, a lot of you may be tuning in, have seen me out on the road because I'm just, I've worn out so many sets of tires and so many old cars. And I'm guessing I've seen a lot of you in person, but unfortunately the breaks are currently that this is what we got to do. So I would say one of the benefits is to dress casual, but if you've ever seen me at my events, there's really no difference.
I've seen photos, and I've been jealous ever since I started working with you that I've never been able to get down to one of the events. So hopefully after this whole pandemic is over, that'll change, and I can kind of experience one of your notoriously amazing in-person book events for myself. It's definitely something I would look forward to. But yeah, I mean, of course, folks may have started to get their books. Sometimes they ship out a little early before the on sale date. But for those who haven't gotten their copy yet, do you want to kind of give us a little kind of elevator pitch of what Mermaid Confidential is all about and what this next Surge and Coleman adventure is?
Well, if people are actually tuning in, the elevator pitch is simply Surge and Coleman are in the book. And so it's you know that they're not going to change their feathers. But this one, it roams around a little bit, but usually there's one central place, and this is the Florida Keys. And I picked a spot. I picked a kind of it's supposed to be a quiet stretch of the Keys. It's a real location. If you know the even though we have Surge and Coleman, but the real star of all the books is the state of Florida. And when I pick a spot, I really want to mine it to get like the real location, all the details accurate and history accurate. And so I had a lot of fun with this area of the Keys, digging up history. And I guess this is not, it's just turning into a broken escalator pitch as opposed to an elevator. The one thing that they do, and Serge explains, he goes, we've been racing around, we're always road tripping. And I said, I want to drop anchor and just really, take a look at a place. And this combines with, he always likes to immerse himself with different aspects of Florida culture. And he says, there's one thing that Florida is known for that we really haven't, dove in the deep end and experienced, before it insert. And Coleman says, you know what I mean? And Serge says, that's right, we're going condo. So they lease a condo and they get involved in the whole, well, as you can imagine, I don't know what's worse, not what's worse, but what's more entertaining, the antics of the condominium residents or how Serge interacts with them. But that's pretty much the conceit of this one, and it was a lot of fun. I made a lot of friends doing it, and so many of the scenes are actually born out of a real experience I had, kind of hanging out in the Keys and around these condos, which I come up with a fictitious condo because I didn't want to pin it on anyone, but it's kind of an amalgamation of real experiences that happen to fit into the plot. I had the plot and just kind of hung this other stuff on it. So that's
if you had to assign a percentage of kind of real life experience that has informed some of the shenanigans we've come to love about Serge and Coleman and their adventures, like on a scale of like 1 to 100, what would you say the percentage might be?
If I could put it this way, it's probably 90% real, but when I say of that 90%, a lot of it's personal experiences and others is stuff that I've read in the newspaper. So it's actually, if it hasn't happened to me, it's happened for real in Florida. And I think people have recognized a lot of the that's what gives it, I love this word, verisimilitude. It kind of rings true to the people who actually live down here when they see something crazy. That they go, that really happened. I remember reading that in the paper, or I saw it on TV. But the one part that I make up, I save it for myself, are all the ways that Serge dispatches the people who need dispatching. I come up with all of that. All his science projects are mine.
That's so much fun. He is very often inventive and creative in those kinds of capacities. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of him as a character. So you have a very exciting imagination in that regard.
I don't know. There's something wrong with me, I think. It's to be able to think of this stuff is, and I think it's funny. It's like itchy and scratchy. People say, oh my gosh, that was just too gross or whatever. And I'm like, I was laughing,
Right. Well, clearly all of us agree in that regard. It's definitely more humorous than anything. You just mentioned kind of reading and being inspired by newspaper stories, and obviously journalism is in your blood from being a newspaper man. How has kind of your journalistic background been able to kind of help you write these books?
It wouldn't have been possible without it. Two reasons is I was around newsrooms enough to just build up this huge reservoir of weird Florida stories. So this predates Florida Man. I mean, my books, first, I think I wrote the first one like 97. It came out in 99, or I started writing in 97. And I just had a lot of memories of just the strangest things. And I just, jot down notes and put them in books. The other thing is, so many of my favorite authors have journalism backgrounds. Carl Hyacin, for example, and Dave Barry's in there, and it's Brandy Wayne White, and the I think reason is they write very tight. In other words, if you there's very little wasted motion. If you work at newspapers, you know that you always want more room to write your story. And they say, well, I need 20 inches. And they say, well, you got 8 inches. These are column inches I'm talking about. And so you learn, to get on stage, do what you got to do, get off stage for that chapter. Then you move it along. So that's just being very terse, and not having, of course now, as soon as I say that, all the readers are going to say, well, what about all these tangents that Serge goes on? And so I had one book, as long as you keep the plot flowing. But one book I had a tangent that went a complete loop, and it came back right to where they had started. So the plot didn't move at all. It was just like this long, well, it was, the readers might remember, it was Serge's first night tour, with Coleman. It was in Sugarfish Twist. And do our viewers out there that they know to type in any wacky personal questions? Or
not quite yet. Give me one moment here.
Oh, please, if you want to know anything, there's something that's been, it's an itch you can't scratch about the books, just chime in with an inquiry, and we'll try to get to it.
Well, and this being your 25th installment, what's the magic? What's the alchemy here of keeping a series kind of fresh and exciting and new with every book, especially because we're so lucky we get a book a year from you?
Yeah, I guess it's whatever's been happening in my life. I mean, it's I kind of think about that, or wherever I've traveled, I'll come up with something, a framework that and one year it was simply the book tour. There's an author with stage fright, and so Serge takes over and does the book tour for him. If you remember back about 4 or 5 books, because there was a particular year that a lot of interesting things happened on the road. But I've Tropic of Stupid, the last one, I spent a lot of time down in the lower keys doing a lot of offshore snorkeling and stuff, and so that fed into that book. But there's really, I mean, the only way you can stop writing these books is if you stop loving Florida, and that isn't in the cards for me. I mean, I'm mainlining Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Florida in and of itself, well, like you mentioned earlier, is a character in all of your books, and it comes across so great. And I think that's one of the things that people appreciate the books. There's a real sense of place. I am personally in Brooklyn, and so when I read one of your books, I don't necessarily have to hop on a plane and all of that to experience what the state has to offer besides Disney World and things like that. So what goes into, I mean, and even in the before times, you were notorious for big in-person tours, but also being able to kind of hit the road and do a lot of research. Do you ever kind of have a plan for each book of what's going to go into this plot next with the bounty that Florida tends to give you?
Well, I have a pretty good idea, and sometimes I need to go back to certain places, and I'll put together a scavenger list of the places I've been to, or places that I want to go to, and it's really important to travel to the places you're writing, even if you've been there before, and talking. I spend a lot of time, chatting up people, and I have. I mean, there's a lot of trails that are not official trails that you can, because it's just like this scraggly, place down here, like in the Keys. I've done some research, and I found some smugglers' trails, or different coves that are now, well, somewhat been developed now. One at this cove, it's right next to now a nice motel, and there's another one behind a sports bar. It's actually down, there's a sign nailed to a tree that this used to be a smuggler's trail that takes you down to the Bayside. But just all this lore that if you ask people around, you keep looking stuff up. And in this particular book, locals, well, actually, they didn't tell me about this. I found it by going down some trails they were telling me about, and way down. Oh, it's on the south side of Boca Chica, but you got to really want to get there, and because there's no real trail. You got to kind of hike where you can, walk out kind of around the water, the boulders and stuff, and there the guy has passed away, but he built this like a legal house on the beach out of limestone and driftwood. I mean, it doesn't look like a house up, but it's built really solid. I mean, it stood up to all these hurricanes and stuff like that. And you can like crawl through it, and there's a little bedroom, and it's really funky. And yeah, but you gotta really, like I said, want to get there and know it's there. And so I take the readers out there with Sergeant Pullman, and it's a real place. You can go on Google Earth. That's what people say they do sometimes now, is they hover over where I'm traveling or where Serge is traveling. So
it won't exactly appear on like Airbnb or something like that. You have to work to find it.
Right. So I hiked way out there and found it. And it's really funky. I mean, he has wind chimes that are made of flotsam, debris that washed up on shore, and just fashioned it into wind chimes and stuff. And it's a very let me put it this way, it's a keys thing. You gotta know it's a keys thing.
Awesome. Well, and it looks like we've got a kind of a new wave of folks coming in. Sorry about the tech issues, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Just a quick recap. I'm Julie. I work with Tim with William Morrow and Publicity. This is Tim. And we are actually also recording this. So if you missed the first few minutes of us chatting, we can get you the recording so that you're all caught up. But also, if you guys have questions for Tim or want to chat, there is a Q&A box that you can drop your question into. And I'll be checking that periodically, and we can kind of enfold your questions into our conversation. We definitely want to be hearing from you. So let us know anything you've got questions about. But yeah, Tim and I have just been chatting about Mermaid Confidential, which is so exciting. It's coming out tomorrow. I'm sure everyone's pre-ordered. If you haven't, make sure to grab your copy. And again, from our bookstore partners, our Fountain Bookstore, Quail Ridge, Murder by the Book, Books and Books, and Tattered Cover. So make sure you show them some love, some indie love, and get your copy of Mermaid Confidential from them. But yeah, so again, drop your questions in the Q&A box, and Tim and I will continue just chatting. I'm personally curious, again, because I've never really lived anywhere else besides where I grew up outside Chicago and then here in Brooklyn. What's your favorite piece of Florida trivia or like undiscovered story, if it won't give anything away for a future book, of that what you might have discovered when researching probably the entire arc, if you want to go ahead and like pull from like any of
the undiscovered trivia. Well, there's one I found, and I've been there forever. I guess undiscovered, I mean, I haven't seen it in a book anywhere, but okay, like if you get it down to the chart room in Key West, it's just tiny little place. It's where Jimmy Buffett, started playing for tips. But if you go down there and you look at the bar, there's actually holes that have been drilled in the bar, and they've been epoxied over, and there's like ashes of some old regulars who have passed on, or in other words, there's ashes from a bunch of dead people in the bar, like in the bar.
Nice.
And it has a
forever having a good time.
Yeah, and some of the holes are empty, and it has a nameplate. The nameplate is of the guy sitting on the stool. He's bought the hole in advance. So
it's basically reserving your like headstone space in the cemetery, but in the bar.
That's right. That's what qualifies as having a dream in the Keys.
Very cool. We have got our first question. Thank you, Birch. He's curious if we'll ever see a return of the old gang, Sergio, Moondog. They were fun.
Oh, thank you. And the thing is, often because I have a lot of different characters in different books, I often don't think of returning them until I get suggestions from readers. So, I'll have to go refresh my memory on those passages. But I appreciate the vote of support for those guys.
And he's also wondering, how do you kind of plan out your books? Are you more like, do you outline? Do you have a idea of the series arc? Is it one by one book, or like, how do you kind of plot out your books and kind of the series?
As far as the series, I go book by book. I don't plan out several books, and I just work on, the next book, whichever one it is. And hold on, I got a whole bunch of things just came alive on my screen here. Sorry about that. It's just a distraction. I'm easily, oh, squirrel. No, so I'll just work on each book, and I'll come up with a loose plot, and I'll start writing it. And but I'll also have a bunch of just notes about stuff that Serge and Coleman would talk about or would do since the last book came out. And I'll just take those. I'll take those notes, and when I'm doing I'll look at that, and I'll look at where they are in the plot. If they're driving around, of course, if they're driving around, they got to have a conversation about something, and or get interrupted and have to pull over because they noticed. Well, I won't. Well, there's a couple things that they stop for in this book. I don't want to give it away until people read it, but in any case.
Nice. If you were on like a road trip with Serge and Coleman, what do you think you would kind of want to talk to them about? Like you as Tim Dorsey.
The thing about them is you never know what's going to catch his. In other words, the whole point is to let them go on tangents. In other words, if it's almost structured like talking about something, it becomes a conversation. These are not conversations. I mean, that's why I have Serge and Coleman. And Coleman, the reason for his, I don't approve of his behavior, but he's harmless. He's huggable and lovable, But the thing is, Serge is, and I've actually had people say this about me, and they weren't necessarily being negative, but they said, it said, if things the wrong way, but sometimes you're exhausting to be around, and it's it's not because of I'm always like running around physically. It's just I'll jump from topic to topic, or I'll be doing something, or I'll be with somebody. Then hey, let's instead go over here and do this, and whatever. So the only reason I mention that is the only person who could probably tolerate taking long road trips with Serge is someone who's self-medicated. So Coleman fits that perfectly. And also I like it because Serge has his things he wants to talk about, and he's going on, and Coleman's the perfect foil, because he's not he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So Serge gets to explain things to him, and then Coleman gets to respond, inappropriately or whatever. So I got my duo. They are firmly established. Those as a matter of fact, it's almost like stealing, because I've been doing this for so long. I know almost exactly what they would say without having planned out the dialogue. I'll have Serge say something, and then I just know what Coleman's response would be when I get to that point. And so it's like I'm taking. Hate to say, it's almost like I'm taking dictation from the voices in my head.
I feel like every good author has to have a few people living up there in order to kind of make their books colorful. So you're right on track. Don't worry about it. We have a question from Steve, and it's actually about the Pope of Palm Beach. He was curious if Darby was based on a real person.
Darby Pope, the surfer, he was based on it's a few people, but one thing I always remembered these people, because I was not, I was kind of, I was very dorky, coming up as a kid and everything, and there'd be, the popular guys or whatever who would, be cool, and what I thought was the coolest was the guys who were just ultimately cool, but they were nice. They didn't have to just talk to the other cool people. They would talk to the nerds or whoever, and make them feel good, and also like Darby, he looks at the person who's kind of being left out, and he includes them. And I've seen people like that, that I thought that was a very admirable trait. And I've been thinking about that for a few books, from different people. I decided to fuse them into that one character.
Nice. Yeah, that's always great when they're genuinely nice people, no matter kind of their social status or things
and
like
I'm
that.
glad he mentioned that in that question, because as I was going along, that was probably one of the first ones where I created a character like that, and I have since I've dabbled in that in a couple of the books since.
We have another question from Vicky, and she is curious about your writing routine. So similar to the planning question, how do you kind of write? Is it disciplined or a little bit more loosey-goosey, morning, night, by pen, computer? Give us a lowdown of how the magic is made.
Well, there's I guess sometimes there has to be more discipline as you go along, but it's really not much discipline. I just want to write, and you can see yourself aging though, because I used to just put another pot of coffee on and just keep going, and I would just go past midnight. And I used to have to make myself stop at 3 a.m. because I said, you're not going to be able to get up and write next day. So, but that I don't even get close to that anymore. I'll get up and I just, like I said, make the coffee, get it ready to just hit the button when you get up. I sleep in. There's no substitute for a full good night's rest. And then I'll just get up and I'll, watch some news until I fully wake up. And then here's one thing, my routine though. The night before, when I'm finishing and I'm closing up my files, this is kind of Hemingway did this, but he used to do it just with one sentence. But I will start the next chapter, and because it's very easy if you just want to jump into the chapter, that you kind of give short shrift to the setup, and I really like the beginnings of chapters because you can kind of set the atmosphere and the tone. And so since I'm done for the day and I've gotten what I need to get done, I could just relax and take some time, and I'll write just to get it started so that when I sit down the next day, I'm off to the races. But I'll write, the first 2 or 3 paragraphs, just setting up the next chapter, because if you know the books, usually the next chapter is a jump to another plot line that's going on. It's not necessarily, it's way more often than not, it's not a chapter that's continuing from the previous chapter.
Sure. It's more of a zigzag than a linear type kind of continuation.
Maybe even less structured than zigzag. I don't know.
A hopscotch, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if there's a technical term for it.
It's just throw it all against the wall.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we have another great question from Edwin, and forgive me in advance because I'm very bad at pronouncing names I'm not familiar with. But do you have any plans to return to Mayaka River State Park for a signing? The staff loves you there.
Oh, well, I love them back, and I do. It's just during the last couple of years, and it's not just the pandemic. It's that's just caused a lot of confusion in people's lives, so I'm going to get back there. I get back there anyway, just because I love that state park. I spent so much time, there hiking around and doing a lot of photography. But I have revisited there in the books, numerous times. And if you don't know what he's speaking of, that it's Saturday nights, under the moonlight, if the moon's at that point, we would have it'd be out this large, huge open pavilion. It's got a roof over it, and they would set up a portable sound system, and we would just be out there at night out in the woods, and I'd do a book signing, like that, and I'd do a talk, and it was, you're out in nature, you can hear, the insects and whatever else is out there crawling around. But it's kind of one of my I have a lot of unorthodox events, and that's one of my favorite formats, for that. So I definitely plan to go back out there, and I do feel the love from the staff and everything.
Yeah, we're getting a few kind of questions about different kinds of events and things that might be happening this year. Robert's curious about if you would consider doing the Music on the Bay in Tampa, or like Tampa Bay Meeting of the Minds in Key West. I mean, I think I'm privy to it because we've had conversations, but do you have an idea of when you'll be able to be back out on the road?
I don't, and I don't want to. The Meeting of the Minds, I've done, I think, like 20 of those at least. Key West, the Jimmy Buffett conventions, but I don't want to, like this year. We started planning some stuff, and we had to back out of them, and I hate to do that. And plus, I'm writing right now, and it's kind of schedule is overtaking itself. So in other words, if once I get past my normal, when I would normally tour, I need to be writing. So the writing's gonna kind of upstage me getting out on the road when it's during the writing phase of the year.
Right. We have another quick question, just and kind of speaking about the pandemic and generally, and I don't want to give away the answer because it's for you, but does COVID play a role in Mermaid Confidential? Have you incorporated any kind of pandemic elements into this new book?
No, I didn't. I don't mind saying that. At the time I wrote it, I felt people wanted to escape, and while I was writing it, I wanted to escape. And a lot of this, I started it before there was you could get vaccinated. And it was like I just played it really careful and stayed inside, and the most I could. Now, that said, the next book, because this thing has gone on and we start having the variants, it's it's hard to ignore it, and B, a lot of things happened, like Serge, can you imagine him bottled up, kind of remaining in place or quarantining or whatever, and what would happen with him and Coleman, and so I don't want to go too much into that, but that takes place, in the next book, because it had just gone on too long, at that point, my writing. And I said, oh, they would do this and this and this. So
sure. Similar to the Sergio and Moondog question, Susan was wondering what the status of the G Unit is, and will they be returning anytime soon?
Well, I would have had to suspend their ages, because they came on and they were, they were among my favorites. But I've used them, I think, at least 3 times now, and I moved on, and I had some other people who were similar to them that have come along. That was in like No Sunscreen for the Dead, as well as this particular book, and so there's similar characters, but yep, that was, I appreciate it. I never thought, the series would go on this long. They appeared in my 4th book, which was, when you do the math, you're coming up on almost 2 decades, since then. So, but thank you for enjoying those characters.
Taking that idea of not necessarily thinking that the series would go on for this long, have you ever thought about writing a book outside the Surge series, or maybe even like a nonfiction book, kind of accumulating all of your fantastic Florida knowledge into kind of an encyclopedia from Tim Dorsey?
Well, first of all, I don't think I would go outside the series, but that said, I tend to go outside the series within each book, and I'll explain what I mean by that, is that I have other plot threads. And if you look, Surge is in at max 50% of each book because I have other things going on, and I could write a different style, I could write different characters. And so, like in Naked Came the Florida Man, I had the character Chris, and I unwove that character's, life arc. And as I told the story. And so that allowed me to write that secondary story, which was one of my more fully fleshed out, additional, the B plot, so to speak. But I guess we were talking earlier, how do you keep a series fresh? You kind of do that, the people, I mean, if I was reading this series, I would want to see Surge, Coleman, and so I have that in there, but to keep it fresh, I will change out and experiment with different types of writing with, the other plot lines. So now as far as, not nonfiction and kind of compiling things, people will know this, is that this was readers asking me, they have the best ideas with this stuff. They know that Surge takes a lot of photos, and they said, we know that that's you doing that. And so, I did put together a couple of photo books, which you can use. They're arranged geographically, so you can travel the state and visit, the locations that are in various scenes of, the various novels.
That's amazing. I'm sure there'll be a lot of road trips coming up soon to try and do that as a way to kind of safely travel as we're still going through everything. We actually have a question about the audiobooks. Birch and his wife love the audiobooks. Do you give conscious thought to them when writing?
The honest answer is no. I've been very fortunate that we've had some good narrators, and that people have responded to those books, or responded to that format. I don't think about it that way because I think about it, I write for them to be read, but the fact that they've successfully been able to be adapted, for the audio format is just, that much, more, gravy. So I got lucky that way.
Well, and speaking of like different formats, is a little bit of a jump from kind of the book oriented formats, but Steve was wondering that at some point there was a discussion of a TV series or maybe even a movie. Is there any kind of possibility of that? And if no, it's totally fine. But who would also be like your dream cast? Who would you want to see play the characters? That's my own addition to his question.
Okay, well, I've had the books have been optioned. In other words, somebody has had the rights forever. I think going back to like 2002, there might have been like 1 or 2 gaps of maybe 6 months. But I don't know. It's just this crazy business. They keep trying to develop it and bring it to life, and it's gotten real close a few times. And but like right now, I mean, gosh, for the last few years, it's just been, someone's had it for like 3 or 4 years. They'll keep renewing the rights. And then when they don't renew it, there's somebody else waiting in line. And then they'll, we'll hammer out a contract with them. So it's just gonna be like lightning striking, when they finally do it. I mean, there have been some companies who have actually put out press releases in the trades, saying this is happening. And I'm like, oh gosh, don't go say it's happening, because it's just going to
jinx it. Yeah.
Sure enough, but yeah, no, there's something trying to be, trying to work on something right now. We'll just happen to see, whether it happens. Now, as far as characters, I was told a while ago, it's like, yeah, don't throw out, when people ask you, but I'm going to mention this because they say, because we might be in negotiations with one actor and they hear you say this or whatever. And then that has actually happened. But however, this actor's too old. But if you can picture a younger version, because just for like when Surge is about to, he's got some guy tied up in a motel room or whatever, and he's giving one of his monologues to the guy. Is an actor whose cadence of dialogue would just crack me up. And it's like Christopher Walken is. I mean,
just thinking about it, obviously.
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love his voice and his dialogue, and but like I said, they have to really do a really good makeup job, or they'd have to make Surge a much older character now.
Sure.
But back in the day, that would have been a nice piece of casting.
Maybe we can like nudge the folks on our side, on the publishing side. So maybe one day Christopher Walken could have like a guest voiceover on the audiobook or something like that. Maybe we can try that.
That would be insane.
We have another great question from Richard. And so if you were told you had only one last Florida road trip or location to visit forever, where would you personally go? And then where do you think Surge and Coleman would go?
Well, it would have to be the same answer because they're pretty much, my alter egos or whatever. It would be the Dry Tortugas.
Is there any reasoning behind that?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's peaceful. You get on to Key West and you can't go any further because the road stops. So you get on a seaplane and you fly out another, nearly 70 miles. And I've done that before. You just unload. I don't think you can carry as much gear back in the old days when it really wasn't that a popular thing to do. But I would just pull out all my camping gear and just pitch a tent for a little while and just enjoy walking around the fort and diving off the moat wall into the ocean and look it up. I mean, you cannot. It's one of those beautiful things I've ever seen in Florida.
Amazing. Well, we're getting a little bit to the end, but I mean, looking forwards and looking to the next book, is there any little tidbit you could share with us about what the next book might encompass or be about? Or you want to keep it super secret? This is me just fishing as a fan.
I would say this is, if you like this book, this next book is more of a continuation. I mean, all books kind of have some kind of but this was more of a continuation of this. It's a totally different plot, but because of what we've been going through, and there's kind of been a lack of us getting out, what's going on with the virus and everything, that's what I was saying. I addressed that, and so it's like to say more would give a little bit away about the Mermaid Confidential, so just I'll leave that there.
Okay. Top secret information, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll only have to wait another 365 days. Spoilers. We don't want that. So Mermaid Confidential is your 25th book. It's such a landmark. I mean, not a ton of authors are able to kind of get to this point, and with such an enthusiastic kind of readership that we just keep coming to your books year after year. And this might be like asking who your favorite child is, but do you have a favorite book of the series? Like, if you can go back and like relive writing your favorite book, do you have one in the series?
I'd honestly say that you always want to be getting better. So you kind of are pulling for the most recent book. In other words, right? I mean, last year it was Tropic Stupid. This year it's Mermaid Confidential. And you always just reassess what you've done and say, okay, how can I kick it up a gear? And you're not always able to, but hopefully you stay where people really like it. And but I did some things in this book that it's coming out tomorrow, so I really haven't had much feedback except some of the reviewers that got early copies. So I'm always just waiting to see like how did they take this, or what's their reaction going to be to this particular scene I did, sort of thing. So since this one's fresh and new, and it's my favorite right now.
I love that answer. Absolutely. Well, and if you guys have your favorite, drop them in the chat. We do have about maybe like 10 or so more minutes. So if you guys have any other questions that you want to ask Tim, let us know. And then again, just a reminder, because we've had a few questions, you can get your signed copy of Mermaid Confidential from our bookstore partners tonight. Again, that's Fountain Bookstore, Books and Books, Tattered Cover, Murder by the Beach, and Quail Ridge Books. They'll come with book plates. And then there are a few stores where Tim has been signing like physical books. So just don't forget to order your copy. You can get it signed, unsigned, multiple ways to add this latest one to your collection. We do have another question. This one again from Steve. Any more plans to do a deep dive into the Loop Road extravaganza?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what he's talking about. Yeah, we're going to have to renew that. That's kind of like the Mayaca thing I have. It's one of those. Well, this one, well, apparently he might have been out there already. It's okay. If you cross the Everglades on the Tamiami Trail, and this was out of Electric Barracuda. It's you go down off the Tamiami. You don't want to go from the western end because it's the road is washed out most of the year, and it's just really, you cannot, unless you want to destroy, your alignment in your car and your wheels and everything. Come in from the east side, from the 40-mile bend, turn off, in this Miccosukee neighborhood, and you can kind of go through there, and it is paved for a few miles, but it's a big, like 24, 28-mile loop, roughly. And out there in the middle of nowhere is this compound by this kind of, it seems Lucky Cole, is a friend of mine. We made friends as I was researching the book, but it's just way out in the middle of nowhere. And we've had some book signings out there, and I've rarely seen book signings like this. They kind of get off the hook a little bit, to sort of use an antiquated term, but it's. I mean, we've had hundreds of people each time, and they're just there all day, music and stuff, and it's like the real Florida. It's all like Mayaca. You're out in the woods, and you get. I mean, they're alligators. I mean, you can go off and you look over. Well, they're not. I mean, they don't come out, but you can like walk over to the side of his yard, look down in the water, and you can see alligators and stuff.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so those have been fun, and they're they're hard to replicate.
Sure.
It's just like lightning in a bottle. It just happened. We just decided to do it, and all these people showed up. And,
that's so much fun. Vicki was wondering, kind of going back to the craft questions, what's your process for length? How long does it take you to finish a book? How far are you into the next book? That kind of timeline question.
It's a book a year, so that's how long it takes. And usually I'll take breaks between drafts. When the previous book I've turned in, I get it back with copy edits, to review, and then I'll go back and start working on the book. And then after the copy edits go back, then they'll typeset it, and then I get the galley proofs, and I'll read that again. And so I'm working on one main book each year, and I'm doing the last drafts as it goes into production of the previous book. And then I'll also, if I have ideas that aren't going to fit in the book that I'm writing, I'll make notes for the upcoming book. So the output averages one a year by doing it that way.
That's great. Let's see. Do you think Serge would go after like the condo board or engineers in the aftermath of the Surfside collapse? What would his like vigilante response be to that? That situation is, I mean, it's like, it's as they say in comedy, too soon. In other words, I don't. I mean, there's certain things that certain things that you got to wait, or they're just not fodder to for humor or joking, and that was a tough one. I mean, that was to be following that
because it was really drawn out, how the whole thing happened and everything. But no, I mean, I have plenty of other fun, with condos, in this book that's just coming out tomorrow. So
shenanigans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you discovered, so this is just a personal question, have you discovered any new good, like, what are you reading for fun or watching on TV? Anything exciting, or is it kind of like head down because you're in the middle of this new book?
Well, my head's kind of down, but I love sports. I've been watching a lot of sports, and just reading. But when you ask for reading, I usually don't read, while I'm writing, because you don't want to it's just, you don't want something accidentally, subconsciously filtering in from the night before, that before you put the book down, and then you'll accidentally, use a phrase that you didn't intend to. So I kind of avoid that. But yeah, I'll mention this when people ask about what I'm reading. I always like to, kind of give a shout out to my favorite Florida book is A Land Remembered by Patrick Smith, and it was a very small press, but the people who have read that, it's this multi-generational tale, and it's structured magnificently. And I don't know how he got all the information, but it just takes you through, a recent history of Florida. It's maybe about 100 and, well, not quite 150 years long. The duration of the plot, but A Land Remembered. If you're looking for something, great, that's about Florida, I don't know how you could really top that as a Florida book.
Nice. Well, I'll have to add it to my to be read pile, because I feel like we can't get enough of Florida, whether it's the crazy antics or it's something a little bit more kind of serious. But okay, Tim, I think I'll release you from tonight. This has been such a joy, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, Mermaid Confidential.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, it comes out tomorrow. If you haven't gotten your copy yet, let us know, and we can direct you to where signed copies might be. And again, our bookstore partners would love to get you a copy. Fountain Bookstore, Quail Ridge Books, Tattered Cover, Books and Books, and Murder by the Book. And that's it. So another surge in Coleman is almost out. We've got about, 4 hours.
Yeah, just over 4 hours.
Exciting. It's our New Year's. It's our Florida Surge in Coleman New Year's. Get the poppers ready and everything. Can't wait to dive in. And thank you so much, Tim, and can't wait for the next one.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, everybody out there that tuned in. It's I'm just I feel very blessed that I have people actually interested in what's going on in my head and reading what I write. So thank you very much, everybody.
Hopefully we'll get you on the road. We'll get you on the road next year. Fingers crossed.
There you go.
All right. Have a great night, everyone. Stay safe, stay warm, stay healthy. Bye-bye.